Hey, MCARBO Brotherhood. This is troubleshooting video part 2. It really only affects sub-2000s that have been manufactured after October 2016. There's been some sort of variation in the mold here, and we're addressing an issue where the trigger bar linkage is actually rubbing on this housing where the silver hinge pin sits. So in this short little troubleshooting video, we're going to discuss how to actually get the proper tolerance and test it before you complete your installation. That way there you know there's not going to be any sort of internal interference when you've got it all back together. To avoid a little frustration, little headache, we're with you, we're working with you. So I hope you find this information valuable. Looking forward to your feedback. Now we're going to need this silver pin. I'm going to do a quick little demo on some troubleshooting, some things that we've seen. Just kind of squeeze this into this video since it is a must. If you've got a sub-2000 that's been made or you've purchased new from October 2016 forward so far as of March 29th, we got to do a little troubleshooting. We got to do a test first. So what we'll do is we'll take our trigger linkage here, so our trigger return spring, and our trigger bar. We're going to set it up. It's kind of reverse the way we're doing it. So we've got our long leg here on this tab on the trigger bar, and we're going to put tension on the trigger. So you see me with the short leg there as I'm pushing it forward, and I'm sliding that bottom hole of the trigger over the silver pin. What we're going to do is we want to test and make sure there's no rub. And where we're seeing the rub is right down here. So right down here, that hump that the silver hinge pin sits on, that's what this trigger bar is running into. So that rounded piece of the trigger bar, this piece here, is what's actually running into this little molded hump here that's holding the silver hinge pin in. So we're talking the diameter of 3 hairs, which is about 10/1000ths of an inch. That's all we have for interference. So it just pays to go ahead and take this ejection port side of the grip, put in your linkage for your trigger, and just double check and make sure that it's functioning properly. As you can see, this one's functioning great. There is no hang up, there is no interference. And not every one of the Gen 2s that have been made since October 2016 are having this issue. If that was the case, we would have had to do something with our trigger. But that's not the case. We haven't changed our trigger. KEL-TEC's changed their mold. So some of you guys are going to have to make these fine little adjustments. Not a big deal. We're still analyzing it. We're still looking at it. We might make a slight change if we have to in the future, but since not everybody's having the problem, we're going to go ahead and just put out this information, which works great. And really, it doesn't compromise any sort of integrity of the firearm. This is really just a simple little, this is almost stepping into a little bit of a gunsmithing piece, but it's nothing too complicated or too outside the box from what we're capable of handling. So what I'm recommending, take a 180 grit piece of sandpaper, something fine. If you've got fine grit sandpaper, that's going to work. Take your T-handle, right, because it's got that long leg on it, and what you're going to do is you're going to wrap it up, all right, and that's decent. It's about all we need. And what we're going to do is, like I pointed out, we're going to actually just try to sand this piece right here. So you can see, and if you've got interference, you've probably already got some rub on there. The other position that I pointed out previously was this little sharp edge right here. That's where that black pin, where the head of that black pin actually will sit in this recess, and it'll ride back and forth. If you want to sand that down a little bit, take that sharp edge off, that's fine too. And in the process of doing this, it's likely that might happen. So you're going to have to adjust your sandpaper as needed. Actually just one single wrap is all we need to do here. And just go ahead and sand away. So fortunately it is polymer, we can get away with it, but unfortunately injection molded polymer, those tolerances will deviate over time, and that's what we're seeing. So as the molds wear, the tolerances on the polymer pieces are going to actually start to vary, so that like we see now. And I shouldn't give you an actual number, but I know exactly how many of these KEL-TEC's make in a week, and you'd be shocked. You know how we've had a lot of issues with keeping, with finding KEL-TEC sub-2000s? Well, you you're seeing a lot more of them on the shelf, right? People are actually getting them in stock. That's because they're making a lot of them. If you want to email me, I might tell you what it is, but I don't want to. I mean, I was given that information in confidence, so I don't really want to put it all out there. Other thing is, you know, police departments are actually, these are issued firearms now for some police departments. So we've actually been selling parts to police departments. So just this kind of gives you an idea. You know, we're all running and gunning here in a sense, trying to keep up with demand. So for now, this is the fix, this is the solution. So you can see very gradual, you know, very gradual adjustment, and you can see that is really thick. I mean, this is super thick. All it's doing is holding this hinge pin in place. Obviously you wouldn't want to take a razor blade to it. Just a little bit of fine sandpaper just to get that clearance where we need it, and here as well. So on top of this hump and right back here where the head of the black pin runs back and forth. But mainly this hump right here, because that's where the actual head, that rounded head of this trigger bar linkage is actually rubbing. That's where it's hitting. So let me put it back together. We're going to mock it up real quick. We want to make sure that the sanding did the trick. So it may take you a couple times, you know, that's okay. Make sure you get it right before you put it all back together, because that can be a frustrating hang up. You know, I get it. You got it all back together. Now what? You know, the linkage is rubbing. I mean, nobody wants that. So let's go ahead and make sure we test it. Now we need to get this short leg right up against this silver pin, just so we can get tension on the linkage. Go ahead and ease it on down into place. Now we check. Right on. No interference. Smooth as glass. So, and you can see I'm actually holding it center too with my thumb here. I'm actually holding the trigger bar center because I want to test it in different positions. So when it's under, you know, when it's actually back in the assembly, I want to make sure that it's tested in every possible position. So we're good. The other thing is you could clean that out with some CLP as well. Make sure it's nice and shiny, which I'm going to do. Once again, I'm going to pop it out. All right, so it's nice, right where I want it. Go ahead and I'm going to take my T-handle with a rag of CLP here and just kind of clean it out. Make sure we're good to go. Perfect. Okay. Now actually we're going to put it all back together in the working end, which is the non-ejection port side of the trigger assembly. So just like we were doing over there, but now it's all kind of backwards. So the new thing that I wanted to show you too, in previous videos, so take your silver pin, put it back here in this hole, all right, push down. Previous videos, we were doing it a little differently. I'm excited to show this new technique. So you've got your trigger bar here, right? You've got your long leg of the spring at the top, right? Like we've all done and rehearsed many a times. Everybody is now an official sub-2000 armorer at this point. So black pin goes to the top hole. What we're doing now, all right, we're actually winding it. So you can see, right, I got my silver pin in the bottom hole. Everything's situated here. Now I'm waiting with the short leg. You know, I'm waiting with the short leg. As I'm pushing down on that trigger, that silver pin's coming up a little bit, right? Now I've got some tension on it and I just wound it back. Look at that. Easy. Look at that. No more using punches for every bit of this. You know, we're trying to work smarter here. So, boom.